out of 70 churches, 0 came on board. And I just began to think about it. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Of course they're not going to come. They don't know me. So how about if I take the next couple of years and I just start pouring into and connecting with the youth pastors in the community, and then we'll see what God could do after that, after we build genuine relationship. Relationship is the key.
Welcome back to Lebanon House of Prayer podcast. We are so glad you have joined us. We have got someone in the house. I'm so excited about this podcast. We've got Pastor Mark Lancaster from East Nashville at Unite Church. Welcome, dude.
Oh, it's so good to be here with you, Chad. Thank you for inviting me on.
I know. Thank you for coming, man. Well, we're excited to have you. One of the things, the very first time I met you, we were up at Kings Hill. So you are also on the board there at Kings Hill. Are you still president there? President Kings Hill, which is the prayer room in Nashville. Sometimes I forget that people don't know what Kings Hill is. They're like, what is that? But it is a beautiful space overlooking Nashville. And they're calling it Kings Hill because of King Jesus. And so Mark is a part of that ministry there. And then he also has a church there in East Nashville. It's a beautiful building, beautiful church. And I met him at Kings Hill. We were doing a prayer and worship set, and you and I got to connect. And I think Carlos is the one who connected us. And then immediately you started talking about unity, right?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it was like right out of the gate. And I felt like something supernatural. And this was like probably 4 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
It really was. I mean, instantly there was a connection. I remember specifically, I was thinking about that today when you were up on the panel. I was remembering that time that you and Brooke were up there. And I thought, man, this guy was just so incredible. You came and you released a word over me.
Oh, wow.
And so I was so encouraged by you and excited about what you guys do here at Lebanon House of Prayer.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I want you guys to hear Pastor Mark's story, because when I first heard it, I was like, that is incredible. And so this guy here, he carries a supernatural unity. Like his heart is for unity. And we connected immediately because I had been reading through Acts, and before every movement of God, there's supernatural unity. And so you started talking about it, and I could tell you talked about it not from like an intellectual thing, but something that had gripped your heart. Share a little bit about that.
Man, it really did. I was a youth pastor, and this was around 2001. And sometimes there are those moments where you're reading scripture and you've gone over a passage, I don't know how many times, but then there's one time it just stands out. Well, this was one of those moments. I can't remember exactly what month it was, but I remember it was 2001, it was 2001. And I read John 17, unity, and it was like it popped off the page and gripped my heart, and it's never let go. And so it was incredible. And I was leading this youth ministry at the time. And I began to think, what does this look like in a practical sense? How we can start coming together, in particular, John 17:23, after Jesus had already prayed, Father, may they be one as you and I are one, right?
Yes.
And then he says in verse 23, that they may be brought to complete unity so that the world would know that you sent me and love them as you love me. I mean, man, there is something powerful that happens when we come together in unity and oneness. And it was like, boom, the lights came on. And it's never, like I said, it's never let go. And I just cannot think about, we don't have a faith outside of unity. When we think about the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, they are all together. They're in unity, they're in oneness. And this is what Jesus is praying. And so I was reading this and I thought, what does that look like in a practical sense?
Right.
And all I could think about at that time, like I said, I was a youth pastor, is I know what we'll do. We'll put together this big event.
Yes.
And so what I did is I took the budget that I had to work with and I rented out the Gallatin Civic Auditorium.
Wow.
And I thought, what we're going to do is we're going to have a big lock-in.
Okay.
Now, we'll go ahead and pay for the lock-in. And what we'll do is we'll put together a promo pack, with video and as well as, write up everything that we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I'll invite all of these youth groups, and I'll invite them to come and be part of it. The youth pastors can come and speak, and even their worship teams. You know, we're going to be there all night. We can have multiple worship teams, and we could all do it together. This will be John 17 unity.
Right.
And so this was my idea. And we hand delivered these things. You know, we would call and drop them off at churches, and I made follow-up phone calls. Now, it's important to note this. At the time, I was working on Music Row. I worked at CSAC. So I was a part-time youth pastor. And so full-time down on Music Row. So during my lunch break, I would make the follow-up phone calls for this event that we were going to have. And we were calling it Gas Max.
Oh, wow.
Gas for God answering students.
All right.
Max, just because, hey, Max is good. And so
Gas
anyway,
Max. That is awesome.
So we were having this event, and we get up to it, and all these follow-up phone calls talking to different people. And when we got there, there was one other church that was involved, and they were from Clarksville. They had seen the ad for it on the Way FM website. Out of 70 churches, 0 came on board.
Wow.
Now, I knew that at that moment I had a choice to make. Right. You know, because I had talked with all kinds of people that said, man, this unity thing, you know, we tried it before. Churches just aren't into it. So, I mean, I could go down the road that everybody else is, or I could just begin to examine. And I just began to think about it. It's like, well, wait a minute. Of course they're not going to come. They don't know me. They have no idea who I am.
Right.
So how about if I take the next couple of years and I just start pouring into and connecting with the youth pastors in the community, and then we'll see what God could do after that, after we build genuine relationship. And so that's what we did. And then, you know, a couple of years down the road, we're doing different things together. And we were in Hendersonville at the time. So it was cool.
Wow. So they didn't show up.
They didn't show up. Nobody wanted to be involved except for the church that was 40 miles away, you know.
Not really in the community.
Yeah. We weren't in the community, but we're not much of a threat.
Wow. Well, I love the idea that you're like, hey, listen, I could be, you know, bitter about this or angry, or I could just be like, hey, let's continue to work for unity. So let's build relationship.
Man, and that's the key. I mean, relationship is the key. I mean, because it's really easy to gather people together around an event or an idea. But, you know, when you think about revivals, a lot of times it's like, why are they not sustainable? Because we've gathered together around an event or an idea, and then after that, everybody disperses and it's just gone. Wow. I mean, what's the connection? What's the thing that is keeping us together? And those things should be our values, the things that we lift up, the things that we pursue together, and the things that we love and we anchor our life to.
Wow. So unity and love are mixed together, because even Jesus there with the disciples, right?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, our great love for the Father I have, and the great love I have for these guys. So like bring them into unity. So that's huge. Relationship building in unity is big.
It really is.
That's awesome. So now so you're a youth pastor, then you become a senior pastor, correct?
Yeah, the Lord called us to plant a church in 2014 in East Nashville. And at the time, we were a church called One Stone Nashville. And, you know, and we had kept going, we were moving and grooving. And then, you know, COVID hits, you know, and then things just began to kind of shift a little bit, you know, as they did.
Right.
And then around 2021, the Lord was just doing different things. And he began to highlight, there was a little unrest, you know, kind of in the house. And it was like, okay, God, I sense that you're doing something. You're kind of shaking things up. And spending all of that time in unity, we just recognized, okay, maybe there's something else that the Lord wants us to do. And during my prayer time, I just sensed that I heard from the Lord, Mark, I don't want you to just do unity. I want you to become unity.
Wow.
I want you to become unity.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, what does that mean? Well, as I began to pray about that, I just heard Jesus's words, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains but a single seed. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Wow. And so I began to think about that. And I was having a conversation with a pastor friend of mine who was right there in East Nashville. He was pastoring a vineyard church. And he and I would get together often. Yeah. And I remember just knocking around the idea. I said, hey, man, you know, I just sense that there's some sort of a shift that the Lord wants to make. And he's like, man, I just kind of sense the same thing. And it's like, man, what would happen if we allowed our churches to quote unquote die?
Wow.
If we laid them down, you know, as we're kind of laying Isaac down, if we allow our church to die, to be raised up, given a new name for his purposes, what would happen?
Wow.
And so we began to entertain this idea, began to pray into it. We ended up sharing it with our board, and unanimously, everybody was completely on board. They sensed like, man, this is the thing. This is the thing. And so we actually that's how Unite Church started.
Okay.
So we united, and we had, during that time, 2 lead pastors working together.
Wow.
So we did that. We came together, and it was, but here's the deal. He and I we were just wired different. You know, I've been a unity guy for years. I'm really city focused, even outside of the church.
Right.
You know, just connecting, you know, even apostolically.
Yeah.
And he was really focused inward. Now, if at the time, you know, because there's a difference between uniformity and unity.
Now, yeah, give us the difference on that.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Uniformity demands that you do things the way that I do them.
That is good.
And then unity actually celebrates the fact that you are designed differently, and you carry something that I need, and I carry something that you need.
That is
and
good.
Those things can be respected and honored and actually empowered. And when we are operating that place, you know, we both win. And so at the time, we were just navigating and doing life together, but preferring one another. It's like, man, we were 2 lead pastors on our own, and now we're working together, and it's like, man, I don't want to step on his toes.
Yeah.
You know, and he didn't want to step on mine. And so it's like, we're just kind of chumming it out.
Well, that had to be challenging, right?
It was very challenging.
Because you're both been in leadership, and then to come together in this new thing. And then you, like you said, like, hey, I want to make room for you, and you want to make room for me, and this, you know, oh my word! And these are not small churches, right? Like, what were you?
No.
One Stone was fairly large when you merged, right? What were you guys running?
Yeah. One Stone around the time of right before COVID hit, you know, we were running about 350.
Right. So that's not necessarily a small church.
And then around 2021, we had, you know, probably gone down to about 250.
Yeah, with the COVID. So okay. So you and this pastor are working through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've stepped into this new model, which you feel like is Unite, and so you're working through this. So what ended up happening? Like, what did you guys end up doing?
Well, you know, it was right there toward the end.
Yeah.
And what I mean by the end is, you know, we ended up purchasing these 2 buildings, and there were changes that were happening and whatnot. And I knew that I've always been called to the urban ministry. You know, so that was my calling, you know, multicultural church and stuff like that in the city. And I knew that. And he really, you know, really had a heart for, you know, Franklin.
Right.
And so that was really where his heart was, and he had expressed that often. And we were actually talking with another church about possibly them becoming a Unite Church.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thought, man, this is great. This is great, man.
Yeah.
And so I remember praying, and it was around August of that particular year. I think it might have been like 2023 or something like that, or 2022. And it was August. And I remember praying, I said, God, I pray that you open up the door for him to be able to lead this other church there in Franklin. And then I could lead this one. And then we could, you know, navigate these Unite churches together.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a phone call from him this one day, and he's like, Mark, I got to talk to you. Ended up getting a phone call from the guy that was, you know, the other pastor of the church. And he said, he's asking me to take over the church. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Right. You know, I've been praying about this, you know, this is incredible. And he's like, but he doesn't want it to be a Unite church.
I got you.
You know, and so, but it ended up, that was a spiritual father to him. It was just this, you know, it was beautiful. It was just incredible what the Lord was doing. Yeah. And so the Lord was calling him to be in that community, and the Lord was calling us to be there. So, you know, ended up, you know, we're still friends.
Yeah.
But it just navigated the changes.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so wasn't expecting that. And
Right.
the Lord answered the prayer, but not in the way that I thought.
Yeah,
And I was like, man, I didn't see this. You know?
Yes, I didn't see this coming.
And right before that is
Yeah.
when we started hitting our groove, man.
Really?
Because, you know, he was empowered in his gifts, and then I was walking and moving in what
Yeah.
I was naturally gifted toward. And when we were doing that, we were both winning, and it was incredible at that time. So for about 3 months, it was amazing.
That's awesome.
You know, before that, we were learning.
Yeah, you were
we were learning the dance.
Well, and I mean, you got other things like you got boards, you got finances, you got all that you had to like that's a big deal because you learn quickly what's actually on your heart. Like, are you going to prefer unity or money or position or power or status?
Man, that's
you know. So when you merge all that stuff, it really was probably like, hey, I got to lay all this down.
It really
was there anything that you were surprised by, like as you were walking through that journey, you were like, man, I just didn't see this coming?
Yes, when they ended up leaving, I mean, obviously we knew that there were going to be some that went.
Right.
And then the plot thickens.
Yeah.
Here's the plot.
Here we go. A plot thickens. They'd be like, dun, dun, dun.
And this was just a small portion of that time.
Yeah.
But around the time that he and I came together, there was another church that reached out to us, and they wanted to meet with the other pastor and I, and he did. And he says, the Lord is showing me that our church is supposed to merge in with you guys.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, dude, we just got together, man. Let's just be friends. Let's see how friendship works, man. You know, and we'll see what happens down the road. We don't want to keep adding to this thing.
Now, were you good friends with him? Were you in good relationships?
No, I didn't really know this other guy.
Yeah, you didn't know this other guy. Okay, I got you.
And, but I knew and I recognized, that the Lord had other plans. And so I was just open. So when our other pastor left and, to be part of the church in Franklin, I ended up calling this guy up and I said, hey, has the Lord been saying anything to you? And he's like, yeah, unity, unity, unity. Wow. Merge, merge, merge. Yeah. And I said, wow. Okay. Let's get together and talk. And so we got together and talked. Long story short, they ended up just coming and being part. It wasn't two entities coming together to become one. They were merging into what it was that we were doing. But culturally, it was completely different.
Okay.
So that was one thing that we just really noticed. So, along this unity journey, learned a lot along the way.
Right. So when you say culturally, was it like worship styles? Was it the way they did church? Was it just what they expect to come from church?
Well, it was all. It was all. It was multicultural.
Yeah.
It was they came from and the church culture was from a hierarchical kind of leadership.
High church kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like Moses going up to the mountain, and as the leader, I'm going to bestow what it is that the Lord has given me and share. Whereas, our leadership style is, hey, you have the Holy Spirit in you, and I do, and we prefer one another. Let's work together as a team. Let's seek the Lord together and see what the Lord is showing us.
Yes.
And then we empower one another. And it's not me at the head and everybody under me. It's, man, we all get to do this together.
Well, there's such a strength in that and a huge weakness, because like if you're the head, man, you feel like this overwhelming, like I've got to come up with the right thing.
Oh, man.
And we know Jesus is the head, so we're like, okay. But I love that model where you're like, hey, we prefer one another. And we recognize I don't have all the gifts, right?
That's right.
So unity is like, hey, I prefer you. And so I see the gifts in you, so I'm going to ask you about this and what do you think and all that. So that's amazing. So you guys merged all that together. And then what happened?
Yeah, they were with us for about 8 months, and the Lord just ended up directing everything. It was almost like Teflon.
Yeah.
Just one day picked up
and moved to somewhere else.
And we both just went our ways. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so there really is, and a lot of times, especially in the early days, I did not count the cost of unity.
That's what I was going to ask you. What is the cost of unity?
Oh, man.
Because there's one, it had to be a personal cost, right?
Yeah.
And then there had to, because you and I've talked about this, in the church culture, it's relational, right?
It is.
Because that's how we form relationships. We're shepherds, right? So we have relationships with people, but then when people leave, what do you do? And I'm sure there's people who left because they're expecting one stone and now they're stepping into something different.
Man, that's right. And when we became Unite, because the church that we merged with then, because One Stone was always very community oriented, even as a church. Angie and I would have people over after church, just tell everybody, hey, everybody else, just come to our house.
Right.
We'd have like 40, 50 people hanging out Sunday, just, hey, go to Kroger, pick something up. We'll grill it out and let's just do this. And just spontaneous kind of stuff. And we did life together.
Right.
And so here's the cost. Is when we came together, because you've got this other church and they've got a different culture completely. And our people were like, Mark, it just doesn't feel the same. And people that you had been with for years, and I'm one of these leaders that I go all in. I go all in with my heart, and it's like, man, I'm fully present. And so, people aren't just bodies,
right?
In there, it's like, man,
right. You have a story.
You've got a story.
I want to hear your story. Tell me
your story.
Who God created you to be.
Yeah. And so everything is just very, it's that unity, it's that oneness, it's that sense of family, it's kingdom, so rather than just participants or spectators or just, people that are hanging out in the stands.
Right.
And so these were people that we did life together. And so that was very hard, especially the early point, because there was such a cultural shift. And we didn't notice it. It didn't really start hitting until about 4 to 6 months later.
Yeah.
And then people, had started to leave, and they would get frustrated over different things. You're not anticipating any of this stuff because everybody was on board at first.
Right. It sounded like a good idea at first, right?
Yeah. The honeymoon's over.
Yes.
And of course we know that when it pertains to marriage and stuff, but I was completely blindsided. Wow. I didn't see any of this stuff. And people that I thought, man, we're going to be on this journey for, the next 20, 30 years. Like we're doing life together.
Yes.
And then they left. It was quite painful.
Yes.
Especially when you end up losing most of your church that was with you, like One Stone and just that culture. And so what ended up, that happened. But at the same time, you've got this other dynamic, as Unite Church, we're actually building this new community. Right. New people are jumping on board. They've grabbed hold of the vision. They want to be part of this thing. So now it's the culture that we were really going for. Truth be told, when we were One Stone, when I sit back and I think about what happened, even the people that did leave, I believe that the Lord took us through that process because he needed to.
Yeah.
Because if we were going to step into this John 17 unity, then he had to change things. Because up until that point, when we were One Stone, the John 17 unity part, well, that's just Mark's thing. That's Mark's thing.
Right.
We've still got our Bible studies. We've got all of our classes. We're connected in-house. Right. Mark's connecting around the city and he's doing all of this. But that John 17, we'll give a nod to that. Yeah, we've got it on the walls.
Right.
But that's Mark's thing. But God wanted it to become the culture. He wanted us to become unity. He didn't want us to just do unity. It's not just an action. It's not just an event. It's not just something that you do. It's something that you become.
That's so good.
And so he needed to do that. And he needed to do that with me too. He needed to break me. And it did. It was during that whole season, all of those seasons were some of the most painful seasons I'd ever walked through in my life. Yeah. And the same thing is true, with Angie. Angie's my wife.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times that, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
We would, we would just get another phone call from somebody. Hey, can we talk to you? We got something to talk about. And after a while, it's like, man, do we have to?
I don't need more phone calls.
Just go ahead and do it, man. Send me a note under the door. Why the phone call? Why the meeting?
Right. Why the meeting? If you can't leave, just leave. I love you. We don't have to draw this out. Oh man, but it's hard.
It's very hard,
especially for the wives and
that
and
was
the
part.
family. Oh, so hard. So there was a cost. There's a huge cost to unity.
Yeah, there's a huge cost. And here's the deal: with almost every single one of those people, though, we've still got close relationship. And the bridge is still there. I don't burn bridges, and so it's like, man, there still is, and we connect. And now we are in a healthier place than what we've ever been. And some of those people that were there then, they've now started coming back.
Oh, wow.
And they carry that original DNA. And then when you look at how the Lord moved in their life, the Lord needed to take them out to grow them, to prepare them to be the leaders that he called them to be. So it's just incredible. And now they're on staff, they're leading things, they're teaching. And so anyway, it's incredible.
And then they can share, like you said, they've become unity. They're not doing unity. Oh, that's such a good word. That is amazing, dude. Well, our time is up here. Our 20 minutes went by fast, but we are so thankful for those of you who are watching the podcast. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We love you. We're thankful for you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.